Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today to learn about the Luksic Scholarship at the Blavatnik School of Government, the University of Oxford. My name is Gabrielle Trasati. I'm the Outreach Coordinator at the Luksic Foundation, and here's just a quick agenda for today's event. We are joined by a couple of wonderful guests, Beatriz Melendro Martinez, who's the Senior Admissions Officer at the Blavatnik School of Government. And we're also joined by Belén de Dios Muñoz Zurita, Luksic Scholar. She's going to share her experience with us today. And then we'll end the session with some time for a Q&A. So feel free to really take advantage of this session, ask any questions that you have. I know applications close a bit earlier this year than normal. They close in December. So do keep that in mind. And a recording will be made available on our YouTube channel, and we'll also send this to your email as well after today's event. So just to give you guys a bit of context into the Luksic Foundation, aside from the international education, we also design and implement programs in other areas, as you can see here, anywhere from early childhood to sports to education in the VOTEC world, entrepreneurship, conservation, and emergency support. And specifically within international education, we have been launching and implementing programs since 2000. So it's been a couple of decades now where we've been connecting, making these international global connections, academic connections with Chile and the rest of the world. And since then, we've been able to implement over 30 types of programs in collaboration with 18 institutions, most of which are international, and one of which, of course, we have here today, the Blavatnik School of Government. And the Blavatnik School of Government has had close ties with Chile. We've been collaborating since 2014. You can see here in the top left photo, Nairi has visited. We hosted some events, and in the right photo, you can see the current Luksic scholars there on program now with the Chilean flag. So once you are at BSG as a potential Luksic scholar, that might be an obligatory photo that you'll take with the Chilean flag there that we try to get every year. And then in 2019, the Luksic Scholars community was formed to continue supporting Luksic scholars in their journeys, and I'll give a bit more about that, details about the community soon. In terms of our international programs, there are 3 types that we currently support. These are master's scholarships. They're full scholarships. So what does that mean? The tuition, living stipend, covering the living cost. There are also fellowships we have for academics and a doctorate in political science, and short courses here that we implement in Chile with international experts. We have had the Blavatnik School of Government give a couple of short courses here to professors and academics. That was last year, and then will happen again next year as well. And then anyone who forms part of these programs, we then invite to join the Luksic Scholars community. So here's just a quick snapshot of where the Luksic scholarships are available globally. You can, of course, check them out on our programs page, but they all will be related to the relevant themes of public service, sustainability, and data and AI. And today, of course, we're focusing on the 3 full scholarships that are available each year at the Blavatnik School of Government. So this is a fully funded opportunity. We're talking about coverage of the tuition fees, your living expenses for that full year on the program, your arrival and travel costs, as well as you can apply for extra funding for the summer project that you'll do when you finish your classes. Beatriz will talk a bit more about what that looks like, and maybe Belén can also shed some light on what the summer project that she did looks like. These scholarships are available to Chilean nationals. For those living in Chile, there are 3 available each year. You must first apply to the MPP program, and then you'll apply to the Luksic Scholarship, and this is all through the Blavatnik School of Government. The foundation does not participate in any of the admissions processes, selection processes at all. And so if selected as a Luksic scholar, I'm sure one of you in the audience is with us today. It has happened where we've invited scholars to the breakfast, and they said, I attended the information session. So We really hope that's the case, and we're looking forward to meeting you. You will then be invited to join the Luksic Scholars community. As you can see here in some of the photos, we invite you for a breakfast before you go on program so you can meet the other Luksic scholars. There's about 16 each year because there's 16 full scholarships available each year throughout all the programs that we offer. You'll get to exchange information. We really want to make sure that you feel accompanied in this journey with this institutional support. You'll, of course, have the support of the Blavatnik School of Government as well. And in that bottom photo, Belen is there as well. You'll see that we visit where you'll be studying. Trinidad, my boss, is in that photo. She'll bring you guys super rocho and choquita. She'll take you out to dinner. So we also want that feel of community to be very present as well. And how to access the Luksic scholarships, as I mentioned, the foundation doesn't take part in the admissions or selections processes. Everything's done through the universities with which we have partnerships. So the first step is to understand the admissions criteria. This will vary according to the program. Then you apply to the program and the scholarship via the university, and then essentially await a response from the institution. There's also no obligation to return to Chile upon completion of the program. Belen happens to have stayed in the UK, and she'll tell us a bit more about that. And there are also no age requirements except for the Schwarzman Scholars Program that takes place in China. So do know that. And I will leave it there and pass it over to Beatriz so she can share more on the application and admissions process and timeline.
Lovely. Thank you, Gabrielle, for the lovely introduction. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'll be talking a little bit more about the Blavatnik School of Government at Oxford, about our MPP program specifically, its admissions and application process, some top tips, and a little bit about funding. I'm Beatrice Melendro. I'm the Senior Admissions Officer at the school, and I think I've been working in the admissions team for 5 years. I think this one's my 6th. So hopefully I'll cover some of the main areas where you might be curious or have some questions about. But of course, let us know if you have any other questions. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen first, which you hopefully can see now. Let me know if not. So I'll start off by telling you a little bit about the school. So our school was founded in 2011, and we welcome our first cohort of students in 2012. So this is quite new and young for Oxford standards, especially because, as you probably know, it is considered to be the university that's the oldest in the world. And by many rankings, it's also considered the best university in the world. The school was created with a specific mission in mind, and that is to inspire and support better government and public policy around the world. And we aim to do this in 3 main ways. So firstly, through teaching current and future leaders. Secondly, by conducting and carrying out research with impact that addresses the most pressing policy needs that we're currently facing. And thirdly, through engagement with governments and practitioners, by bringing people together across disciplines and sectors to share knowledge, exchange ideas, and create solutions. Overall, what we want is a world better led, better served, and better government, which is kind of the tagline of the school. So today we'll, of course, be focusing mostly in the first way through which we aim to further our mission, which is through teaching. The school teaches in a number of different ways. So we've got graduate degree programs, including our MPP, but also our MSc in Public Policy Research and our DPhil. We also have a number of executive education programs and online courses, but we will, of course, be focusing on our MPP in Public Policy today. The MPP is our flagship program and also our biggest one. The size of the cohort varies, but usually we have 140 to 150 students. And the photo here is one of our recent cohorts. I believe this is the 2024, so Belen, you might be in there. So yes, it's our biggest program, our flagship program, and the main one that was really thought about for this teaching future leaders kind of aim that the school has. Because our focus is to prepare future leaders for the most pressing and current policy issues, the content of our program does change every year slightly because we want it to reflect and address what the most pressing current issues are. The MPP has been designed to draw from a range of different policies. So on the MPP, you studied philosophy, economics, law, and political science, but they're all very much in the context of how these disciplines relate to public policy and how they can help us address the real challenges that governments and that the public faces. It's a really immersive and continually applied program, which is one of the things that we think really makes it unique compared to other MPPs. But it also gives you the opportunity to delve into really specific areas and issues that interest you. So from our perspective, we really think that the school is really unique, and we think that our MPP program is really unique. But I think the most unique part of our school and of our teaching really is our student body. Belen will be able to tell us more about it because she'll have lived it. But our MPP cohort is always extremely diverse. And this isn't just in terms of nationality and ethnicity, which it is very diverse in, and I'll touch on later, but also in terms of backgrounds. Because we don't require a specific professional or academic background, our students always come from a huge range of backgrounds. And I've said background a lot now, and a huge range of interests. So it's incredibly diverse, both in what you want to focus on, level of experience and seniority, socioeconomic background, culture, but also school of thought, opinions, ambitions, and goals. Because of this, we always say that on the MPP, you're not just coming to learn from the incredible faculty at Oxford, but also from the incredible students that come to the MPP. I think, again, Belen will tell us whether she agrees with this, but one of the most common and recurring feedback we get from students at the end of the program is how unexpected they found it, that when they came on program, they didn't just get to meet these incredibly diverse other students, but they got to connect with them and to realize how unexpectedly similar they are, not just in terms of, their personal lives, but also in terms of the public policy issues that they face in countries that are, on completely different ends of the world and that, previously they thought had nothing in common with them. So you don't just obtain a degree through the MPP and you don't just get the Oxford experience. You also get to meet and connect with this kind of lifelong network of people that are just as passionate as you, even if it is from the completely different side of the world and from a totally different background, which will really kind of ground you in this global nature that we think of governance as being. Hopefully this is a nice intro to the school and our program, but I'm sure a lot of you will want to know kind of the nitty-gritty, the details of the program structure and especially of applying. So I think now I'll go into a little bit more detail. Firstly, the course structure, so a little bit more about the specifics of the program. Here you can see kind of how the year is structured. First thing to note, Oxford loves its, special words for things. So at the top of this table, you can see the name of our terms, Michaelmas, Hilary, and Trinity. And you can see just under it what months that refers to. So as you can tell, the first two terms, Michaelmas and Hilary, are taken up mostly by compulsory modules that all students will take. These are things like foundations, which is how we refer to our philosophy module, economics, law, and many others. Some of you will be lawyers, some of you will be economists, and will wonder about having to take a module on, the area that you're an expert in with people that maybe have never done it before. But the thing that we have to remember is that we're specifically focusing in these disciplines on how they relate to public policy. So even if you are a lawyer or an economist, in these modules, you will still learn something new, or at least that's what we believe and what we found to be the case. We also think it's really important to help each other out on the program and learn from each other, as we said. So you might be an expert on economics and therefore you can help some of your fellow students that maybe don't know as much. But then perhaps in one of the other modules, perhaps in the philosophy module, you'll actually realize, actually, I've never studied before and I've never heard about it. And another student will be able to help you. So it's kind of done to ensure that there's an even and level playing field across the cohort. But don't worry, in the third term, you will spend the bulk of your time specializing, so through your optional modules. You're invited to pick 2 optional modules, and every year there's a list of more than 20 options to pick from. The content of the list of options varies each year based on demand and also on faculty availability for teaching, but there's always a huge range to pick from. And if there's an area that you don't find represented and enough students are really keen to make this happen, the school is really good at answering to this demand and trying wherever possible to give you an opportunity to study these areas that you're really interested in. So some recent examples include things like challenges in tax policy, digital economy and regulation, health policy and systems, climate change politics and policy. And I mean, as I say, I think there's usually about 22, 23 options to pick from, so a huge range. Otherwise, as well, in terms of specializing and picking your interests, throughout the year you have these applied policy modules and the career and professional skills program. These are sessions that are really designed to help you acquire, develop, and enhance practical skills that are necessary for a successful career in public policy. And your applied policy modules, you also get to pick from a number of options. Another recent addition that isn't on this table because it isn't part of compulsory curriculum, but which I think has been having really good reviews and we would definitely encourage you to participate in, are thematic clusters. So these are an opportunity to connect with wider school outside of just the students and the faculty teaching on your courses around topics you're passionate about. So each year we select a number of themes for clusters and then the school hosts seminars, events, and talks about these. So they're open to students, faculty, but also all members of the school. So people working on the research projects, visiting fellows, and so on. And they're a great opportunity, again, as I say, not just to delve deeper into an issue that you're really passionate about, but also to widen the network of people that you get to meet at the school. The themes do change regularly, but some recent examples include global security, social policy, sustainability, and public governance. And again, I think they take stock of demand, so they ask us, you know, what topics we might be interested in having a cluster on, and really take that on board. And there's also lots of opportunities to get involved by hosting some of these kind of seminars or talks about these things. Finally, in the summer, you have to write your public policy report, which is essentially kind of the equivalent of a master thesis for us. And it's normally based on a minimum 6-week work placement that you do with an organization engaged in some aspect of policy work. So this could be any kind of work, really. It can be in a government department. It can be the policy unit of a private sector organization. It could be a non-for-profit research institute. Anything that has an aspect, an element of policy work could be appropriate. Alternatively, some people choose to do a placement that allows them more to reflect on a policy challenge themselves under the advice of an academic at Oxford and at the school. And this could be kind of independent desk-based work that you do, or it could be part of a project or a research project at the school. And following your time in this placement, you have to write your policy report, and that's your biggest and final piece of the program and your final piece of written work. And essentially, you have to kind of focus and reflect on a policy issue. A lot of people worry about finding their placement for the summer. And I would say the biggest piece of advice is at this stage, don't worry about it. Everyone does get something, and I think everyone every year enjoys what they end up doing. The school has a great professional skills team that does a lot of work finding interesting placements and helping you obtain a placement. That being said, we're not going to do the job for you. You will have to put in the work and put in applications, but we will be there to help you throughout the process. So that's kind of the brief kind of overview of the program. So I'll tell you a little bit about our cohort, which, as I mentioned, is what we think is one of the most unique things about our program. So the data you see here on the screen is our graduating class that finished in September. It was made up of 156 students coming from 61 different countries, or 63 if you count dual nationals. We had a pretty even gender split, and there's the age range, which averaged out to 29, which is roughly what the average tends to be every year, 28, 29. As our school and community continues to grow and as the word spreads, we welcome students from new countries, and almost every year there's at least one new country that hadn't been represented in the cohort before, and we think that's just an interesting fun fact to raise. And last year, that was Cameroon, which we were delighted about, and we were also really excited to say that 90% of students in that cohort came with some funding. So of that 90%, 79% had funding that covered the full course fee cost, and an additional 11% came with some partial funding. That's in great thanks, of course, in great part thanks to scholarships like the Luksic Award that we have, that really helps us bring in students, come to study with us, regardless of what their financial limitations and barriers might be. So the numbers on the screen and the countries represented on this map, of course, vary slightly every year. Our newest cohort that started this September, so it's a little bit smaller with 141 students, but the age range, gender split, countries represented, and even the funding is pretty similar, pretty much the same. Percentage funding this year was 87 instead of 90, which we're still quite happy about. And our new country, I believe, is St. Lucia. So we're always happy to have that little fun fact to share. So on funding, I'll talk about that further a little more at the end, but I just want to emphasize at this stage that at application, we don't want funding to ever really be a barrier. We don't want you to not to apply because you don't think you'll be able to fund. There's a lot of resources available for helping you find funding, and we do put in a lot of work to find scholarships like the Luksic Foundation scholarship to support students. So we can't guarantee that you will get funding, but we will do our best to help you and support you in that search. So at application, if you're interested, apply, even if you don't think you'll be able to afford it, because we don't want the funding to be a barrier at this stage. We don't want it to be a barrier at any stage, but especially at application. So we'll talk a little bit about selection criteria now. As you can see on this slide, we have three main selection criteria. So this is what we expect to see in all of our strong applicants. First of all, you need to have a good record of academic and analytical excellence, which we'll look at mostly through your transcripts for your previous study, but also a strong commitment to public service and an ability to show leadership and have impact. Your whole application, every document that you submit within it, will be assessing against these three criteria. Academics are, of course, really important. This is an academic degree at Oxford. It is an intense and difficult degree, but we consider all applications across all three. So even if you're slightly worried about your academic record, that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply, because you will be considered against all three. So if your academic scores fall slightly below the advertised criteria, you can still apply. And if you're stronger across the other two categories, that can make up for it. In terms of specific, the academic requirements are to have a first class or strong upper second honours degree from the UK or international equivalents. So international equivalents aren't always direct translations. There's not always an obvious answer, but for US degrees, it's roughly a 3.6, 3.7 out of 4 GPA. And for Chile, we usually expect an academic result at undergraduate level of about 5.5 or so out of 7. But as I say, there isn't a direct translation, exact way to equivalence those results. So we will look at all applications on a case-by-case basis, and we will look at it across all three of these criteria. And you can make up for lower academic records if that's the case. But these are the things that you have to keep in mind when you're writing up your application, and these are the things that you should be demonstrating throughout. Application components, so what do you need when you apply? What things should you submit? I won't go into detail because it's all on the website that is linked there in the corner of the slide. But I wanted to flag just 3 things that we either get loads of questions about or that have changed recently. So references. You have to have at least 3. If you have less than 3, you might be marked as an incomplete application and we might not assess your file. And of those 3, you have to have at least 1 academic reference. This must be from your most recent academic studies at higher education. If you have a previous master's, it should be from either your supervisor or course director. We often get the question of how important is it to have an academic reference? Is it really essential? Well, we do know that a lot of our applicants come to us after many years out of the education system, so they might struggle to find a reference from their academics. They might, not be in touch with anyone at their institution anymore. Maybe they've even, their supervisor's retired, things like that. We know it can be difficult. If you don't have one, that's fine. However, it is in our requirements for a reason. The admissions committee does want to see one and expect to see one. So if you don't provide one, it's likely that we'll email you and ask why this is and encourage you to try to obtain one. If you really can't, that's fine. If you just would rather not, we would still advise that you include one. If you're worried that the reference they provide won't be the strongest application you can get, keep in mind you can have more than 3 references. So you can have 4 if you really wanted to have 3 professional references rather than having an academic one. So we would encourage you to try to get the academic reference, but not the end of the world if you don't have it. Next, on personal statement. This is very different from most other masters. It's not a free-form document. We want you to answer 4 specific questions. So you should have a personal statement that is one document that answers 4 sections in 4 separate paragraphs, 200 words each. This is because we want to ensure that you're giving us the information that the admissions committee wants to see. So really, we're trying to help you make sure that you don't miss any important information. And the specific questions you should answer, again, are in the application guide that's linked at the bottom of the slide. Finally, one thing that's changed this year is in the reflective policy essay, we've now added the requirement that you have to submit a use of AI statement. So at the end of your essay, you have to have a document that outlines whether you've used any AI tools in writing this essay, and if so, which one, how you used it, and how helpful you found it. We've added this because we know that these days, pretty much everyone is using LLMs like ChatGPT or any other one in their day-to-day life. And this is not something we penalize because we understand that it is a really helpful tool for research. However, we think that all AI use has to be done within a set of guidelines. So the university has published guidelines on their expectations around AI use, and I would encourage you to look at that, which again is linked on that website. But in short, you should be using AI with integrity, with transparency, and with responsibility. We can't forget that plagiarism is something we have to avoid, and that is not okay. And whilst AI is a helpful research tool, it should never replace our own words and our own thinking. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. So as I say, I won't go into detail about each element, but you can find more information on that site. So next, a little bit of an overview about our timeline and the application process. Sorry. As Gabrielle, I believe, mentioned earlier, we've moved our application deadline forward by a full month. So if you want to apply, you have to submit a complete application by the 2nd of December. We've done this because we get so many more applications every year that it's really a struggle to make sure that we have enough time to assess them really as thoroughly as we want to. We want to make sure we have enough time to conduct a really thorough and fair assessment process. So you've got 1 month less to apply, less than a month now until the deadline. If you want to apply, get on it. We do encourage you to submit as early as possible. All applicants will get an outcome by mid to late March. And if you are successful in receiving an offer, this will come with some conditions with a 31st of May deadline. The university has a really helpful application guide that includes pretty much everything that you might have questions about. And that's linked on this slide as well. So I'd encourage to have a little look at that. So next, I thought I would cover some of the most common application questions that we usually get. Of course, everyone will have different questions based of their experiences and their backgrounds, but these are some that are quite recurring. So first, English language requirement. Do I need to submit a test? Can I get a waiver? What do I need to do? When is this due by? The short answer at this stage is don't worry about it just yet. At application, you don't need to have an English language test result, and you won't be at any disadvantage if you don't have one. Whilst, of course, your English will be apparent when we assess your application based on your essays, we won't be looking at the evidence of test results at application. If you're successful in getting an offer to the MPP, this will come with some conditions. So it will tell you whether you have an English language condition to meet or not. If you do, you will need to meet the higher level requirement at the university, which I have included in this slide, but I'd advise looking at the website because this information can change. So that will have more detailed and more up-to-date information. If you do get an offer and you have to meet this English language condition and obtain a test, you'll have to do that by 31st of May. So I would say don't worry too much about taking tests, spending the money to book it and undertaking it already. If you're not sure whether you'll need one, just wait until you get the offer because that will confirm whether you do or not. Now, another question we get a lot is what does a successful candidate look like? A lot of people want to see what the ideal candidate is and then try to fit their application to kind of look like that to up your chances. The reality is that doesn't work. There isn't one typical or one ideal candidate, and that's because, as I mentioned, we don't have a set level of experience required. We don't have a particular degree background or professional background required. So everyone's really different, and there isn't one profile that's better or stronger than the others. We get people that come from engineering, from medicine, from education, journalism, politics, pretty much anything you can think of could be an MPP student. The key here is that all successful applicants will have in common that they meet our 3 selection criteria. So they'll all have strong academic backgrounds. They all have really strong commitments to public service and to public policy. And they will all be able to demonstrate their evidence of leadership and potential impact. So no successful candidate profile per se, but the 3 selection criteria is what you will all have in common if you are successful in getting an MPP offer. So don't try to kind of fit your application into a box or try to make it seem like someone you think would be successful. Really just be yourself and tell us who you are. Now, top tips. My answer is always the same when I'm asked, is make sure you read all the guidance. Read it before you start applying, read it whilst you're applying, read it just before you submit your application again. As long as you've read it carefully, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to make a strong application. Whereas the biggest mistakes we see every year and the ones that, hinder your application the most are the most avoidable ones. Things like submitting the wrong documents, not structuring your personal statement or your reflective policy essay the way that we require you to, not submitting all of your transcripts, not having the right references. Those things will really affect your application, and they're as easily avoidable as reading the guidance. So that's the biggest piece of advice, even though it sounds really obvious. Beyond that, a slightly less obvious piece of advice, and perhaps a slightly more inspirational one, is that you should be true to yourself. Tell us about you. We don't know who you are. We want to know what makes you unique, what your story is, your journey, your passion, your plans, and your ambitions. Tell us about you and what makes you special and what you bring to the MPP. And this should be a story that flows throughout your application. So every piece of your application that you submit should tell us something about you. Which I understand is vague, but hopefully you will be able to kind of show us that through your files, through your application file. Now, finally, before I wrap up, because I'm aware I've been talking for a while, a little bit about funding. As I mentioned when I was going through the overview of our cohort and the stats around them, we're really glad that in recent years, the vast majority of our students have come with funding, most of them with funding covering at least the full course fee cost. This is thanks, in part, to our amazing donors and foundations that help us, like the Luksic Foundation. It's also thanks to the huge amount of work that the school puts towards finding donors and finding foundations to help us, but also all the work we do with our offer holders to help you find funding you're eligible for. And also thanks to the hundreds, if not thousands, of scholarships that are available through the university. However, the main reason why we get these high percentage rates of funding in our students is ultimately due to the work the applicants put in to find the funding. Each year, the biggest source of funding for our students on the MPP is external funding. That can be from your employers, from your government, from educational organizations, foundations, or international scholarship schemes such as Chevening. There's honestly thousands of options out there, but they're not always easy to find. And because our MPP students and our applicants are all so diverse, there isn't any one resource of obvious places to reach out to. Everyone will be eligible or would be a good fit for different things. And ultimately, as much as we try to help you, it's your responsibility to explore every avenue you think would be possible and to not leave any stone unturned, really. So don't worry about the funding just yet, in the sense that don't let it stop you from applying, but do start thinking about what places might be able to offer you some funding. Also, keep in mind that every little helps. It's not because you didn't get a full scholarship straight away that you won't be able to get little pieces that you can put together, and eventually that does end up adding up and, being a huge help. Other than external, we also get a lot of students funded through Oxford University scholarships. The university has a huge number of scholarships available, and conveniently, as long as you apply to the MPP by its application deadline, you will be automatically considered for almost every single scholarship that's available at the university that you are eligible for. So as long as you apply, the university considers for anything you're eligible for. There is, however, a small number of scholarships that do require you to submit some additional documentation when you're applying. Some examples are the Weidenfeld-Hoffmann Trust Scholarship or the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies at Oxford, and there's a few more. You might wonder, how do I find out? How do I know which ones need extra things, which ones don't? But the university has a really helpful funding search tool through which, if you answer a couple questions about who you are, where you're from, what program you want to apply for, and so on, it will give you a list of all the university scholarships it thinks you're eligible for, and it will tell you which ones require you to do any additional steps. So if you follow that link at the bottom of the slide, it will take you to that tool, and I think it's really helpful to identify whether there's anything you need to do or not. Then finally, the third source of funding for MPP students is school scholarships, so things that we manage at the school. These can either be funded by us or by a number of generous donors and foundations that want to help us further our mission and want to help any outstanding, capable applicants to join us without having to worry about funding. So one such scholarship, of course, is our Luksic Award, made possible by the Luksic Foundation. And this year, as Gabrielle mentioned, we should have up to 3 Luksic scholarships available for outstanding Chilean national offer holders. And as she mentioned, it covers the full tuition and a living stipend that should cover your living expenses for 12 months at Oxford. In terms of the process to be considered for the Luksic Scholarship and any other school-based scholarships, you'll be happy to know at this stage you don't need to do anything for that. If you're successful in receiving an offer, like we mentioned, you'll get your outcome in mid to late March. And if you do get an offer, this will come with a link to our scholarship questionnaire survey. So this is a link you'll follow and answer questions about yourself. Tell us whether you need funding, how much funding you think you need, and it will help us determine which scholarships you might be eligible for. As long as you complete that scholarship by the deadline we give you, you will be considered for every single school-based scholarship that you might be eligible for, including the Luksic Scholarship. We'll then do some shortlisting. You might be invited for some interviews in the context of funding, and then we hope to have all of our scholarship decisions announced by the summer months. So at this stage, not much to do, but good to start thinking about it and thinking about potential leads you could explore for funding. And I think that's the last of my slides. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that has covered most questions. But of course, you can put in the chat if you have any others, and I will hand back to my co-hosts. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Beatriz. And yeah, there's been some questions in the Q&A, which we can start to type answers to and get to. And I will go ahead and share the screen so Belén can share her experience. She's actually there on campus right now and show the building. Maybe she won't give us a tour currently, but I think there's also a virtual one, right, Beatriz, online? Can you take a virtual tour of the campus?
I'm not sure actually. That does sound like something that exists, but I haven't actually watched it. But we have also done a number of Q&A events and things, so there's definitely loads of information on there.
Awesome. Well, I know Belén has some photos as well. So let's see here. I will go ahead and share screen and hand it over to Belén to share a bit of her firsthand experience.
Thank you so much, Gabriel and Beatriz. So thank you everyone that took the time to come to this presentation. My name is Belén Muñoz, and I am an electrical engineer. And I know that sounds boring when I say it like that, but basically what I wanted to do was to solve problems. And I tried to find like issues that were complex and I could get into them. And at the beginning, I thought engineering could be one of them because everyone needs energy. And I read somewhere when I was trying to choose what to study, that basically energy was a driver for development. And I come from like a middle class family. And I always wanted to see like this social mobility. I wanted to see that people could do more with their lives than what their parents have done, and how the effort of families and people can be actually boosted, like pushed up by structural changes. So I thought I will do energy. And that's how I started working in energy. And I worked for 5 years before coming to the MPP, and I was working in the government. So I know that this also sounds very polemic now because of how, or controversial because of the bills scandals that is at the moment. But what we were doing in there, it was to develop policies to achieve energy transition. And that's super interesting. And I was very excited. We pushed 3 laws, and I actually felt that I chose the right career. But at some point, I realized that I was not talking the same language that everyone else was talking, and that there were conversations in where I could not blend completely with what the issue was and my capacity to solve it. So there were issues that involved more social layers to it or more economical layers. And my knowledge in those areas wasn't as deep as I wanted. So I was looking for a program that could help me to bridge those gaps and could give me that capacity to go to a meeting, go to a conversation, and actually be able to put all my knowledge in service to help to build this solution. And I thought I need to diversify my umbrella of knowledge. And that's when I was looking for programs and I found the MPP. And it was absolutely the most perfect decision ever in these regards. And why do I say that? Is because what you are seeing in the screen is what I saw when I was in there. So all these people are very relevant people that are like previous presidents, prime ministers, people that have been leading countries or coordinating international organizations. And they were sitting in front of me, and many times, and not once a week, many times in the week. And I just realized that I was giving the chance to be like a main character in a main conversation with someone that does a lot of change. And I remember having this conversation with my academic supervisor, and I said, when I was growing up, I always thought policy and decision making was for the kids of the CEOs, because they said like, oh, you learn this in the house because you see people making decisions, you see them how they balance solutions, you learn by exposing yourself to those things. And I just feel like now I have been exposed to the human side of the decision making, to the person, that how that person has been built to make these decisions, how these people build priorities, and how you can negotiate with them through those priorities. So basically being exposed to people that make decisions wasn't just to admire them, was a lot more about to understand and to see myself making decisions in the same spaces than them, and comparing my place now and where I want to be if I were in those spaces making decisions. And it made me realize that basically what I see as an urgent is urgent, climate change is urgent, but it needs to be addressed with more things. We say with more pelos en la sopa, with more hair in the broth. Basically, you need to put more complexity to the issue in order that when you go to the conversation, you can actually talk to everyone in the table, not just talk to the people that is like-minded, like you, that have been always thinking the same than you. And that's how to build change, even in spaces where you have different opinions. And I thought that was great. And if we can go to the second slide, something that I could say about the program, and you can see that I'm in all the photos, is to say that the program is, from my experience, is a professional program, more like, not saying that it's not academic, it's very rich academically, but it's thought for someone that is not just like a newborn of the university, someone that has gone through work experience, and is someone that comes here with questions, and is someone that wants to do new things, but maybe don't know how to go there. And that's why all the skills that they are teaching us is more than just, this is a concept, remember it. It's more how to talk in public, how to talk, but being yourself in public, how to don't try to mimic someone else to be in public. And that, I know that maybe might sound a bit basic, but it's a huge step, because it makes you comfortable to live in your own skin in this role of policy maker, in this decision-making space in where you feel that you are yourself and you are talking through your passion and you are happy to be passionate about. And it was very nice to hear Beatriz talking about the application process, because I remember being a bit embarrassed to get too passionate about energy, because I know people talk about things that maybe are more compelling, but I was passionate about it. And I remember talking with the girls that you see in the photo on the left, and all of them are passionate about energy, but one of them works in Japan in technology development. The other one works in Mongolia in investment development. And the other one works in battery storage. All these things sound similar, but they're very different spaces. And I work in regulation, so it's basically writing laws. And I thought, how fantastic it is that I can come to these classes, to these economic classes, and sit with my buddies that are working in energy and talk to each other, and that the person, my friend Nami from Mongolia, explained to me how important it is to de-risk private investment and how to do it through fiscal policy, because she have worked in the international development banks. And I was like, you're right. So all these things took me to places that I wanted to be, which is the Eiffel Tower that you see in the center, which was my policy report. Something that I didn't know before going to the MPP was how to do a networking that makes sense to me, because networking always sounded a bit dirty and a bit like interested. And I didn't want to be an interested person approaching someone else, trying to take something from them. I wanted to build something like a net of support. And there is something that they teach us in the MPP, which is called cold outreaching. And it's basically how to build these relations with people that you share interest, and put yourself in the available space. Like, I am available to work with you if you have a space, but no suffocating the other person and give them a space to tell you no. And using this methodology, I have been working to build like a very great network that has been super beneficial for me, and took me to do my summer placement in the International Energy Agency, which is based in Paris. And in there, I was working in energy policy development to promote more affordable, clean, and secure energy, for not just for Chile now, it was now at a global scale. So I was very happy to be there and challenge new problems. So very happy, and I recommend a lot to see the program. More than just learn new concepts, is to change yourself, because you're a professional that already knows how to professionally develop, but maybe there are things that you don't know how to move to the next step, to the next sphere of decision making. And maybe we can go to the last slide, Gabriel, please. And what I was going to say is that being in the MPP, we had many formal events, as you can see in the photo on the left, at the bottom. And we probably most of the time look very formal, but I choose to show you the other ones, the ones that we are sweaty, the ones that we are like cooking, because I think there is the human side of decision making that happens all the time, even when we play a football match, even when we are doing rowing. All these experiences that Oxford opened for you, they're full of additional work, like extracurricular spaces. You can play football, you can do rowing. I did that, really recommend it. But you can also do other things. Like, for example, we started a knitting club. And in that photo on the top left, you might think everyone is very sweet person, and they are. But all of them had stories that are incredibly amazing. And if they actually talk to me through their CV, I will never imagine that we could be friends, because one of them worked in, like, I don't know, immigration crisis. And I was like, what am I going to talk with someone on immigration crisis? I don't have any expertise. And we spent every single Sunday meeting together and trying to see how these priorities come all together. How my other friend is from Hong Kong, my other friend is from Sweden, the other one is from Slovakia, working in disinformation. And all of these conversations come together to remember that basically the policymaking happens in the people. And now, after the program, I will say that I'm not scared of talking about being involved in policy or wanting to achieve a space of policymaking, because I see that in those places there will be people like them, like all the people that you see in the photo, like me. We are just people, and we're people that want a better world, and we want to serve that better world. And even if we don't agree on the political side, even if we don't agree in the path to get there, we can remember that we want that same end. And that passion to get to that end will be enough to put us all together. And I think that is really, I really like the MPP, because it reminds me that like a better world is possible. I was like a bit hopeless before coming to the MPP, and I finished the MPP, and it seems that the world is in war and it's in crisis, and I'm fully trusting that the world will be better, because all of the people that you see in there has a fire inside themselves and want to make this world better. So if you feel passionate, come. If you feel like you're losing the hope, come. Just basically, if you just want to do something to make the world better for others and for yourself, but mostly for others, come. I think it's a great experience. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Belen. Who could have said it better? And thank you for grounding sort of this experience and really helping us understand what the day of a life of an MPP student is like at Oxford. And of course, happy to, Belen's here to answer any questions that anyone might have on the student experience. And Belen, you're still there on campus, correct? Doing research and energy.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. I'll stop sharing my screen. We can check out the questions that we have. Beatriz Antonia is asking if there are more than 3 Chilean offer holders each year. For the Luksic scholarships, there are 3 Luksic scholarships available, but if I'm not mistaken, there can or typically are more Chileans on the program than just those 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it varies year on year, of course, but we absolutely can have more than 3. There are other scholarships for which Chilean candidates are eligible for. So this year we also have someone funded by one of our school scholarships that's called Policy Leadership Scholarship. You can see that on our website. I know Chile is also one of the eligible countries for Chevening, which funds candidates every year. The deadline for Chevening this year was also earlier than usual, and it was in October, so that's already closed. But it is a really good option as well. So there's no limit to how many we can have. The main barrier for people really is funding, but we do have the 3 Luksic scholarships and a number of other ones that people are eligible for. So yes, we can, and we do have more than 3.
Perfect. And someone had asked if they apply but don't receive an offer, are there specific reasons for the rejection that are provided by the school?
So unfortunately, because of the huge volume of applications that we get, we can't give feedback to our applicants. Even if we would like to, it's just not really possible. And the university policy is that as well. I mean, to put it in perspective, last year, I think we received nearly 1,500 applications for just 141 students. So even though we do appreciate how helpful feedback can be, we just aren't able to provide it, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks, Beatriz. And someone is also asking if there's a possibility to connect the master with the PhD in public policy at Oxford.
So yes, we have a DPhil in public policy. DPhil is just the Oxford word for PhD, really. Um, you can apply for the DPhil after the MPP. What I would say is that a DPhil, a PhD, is a research degree. So it's a completely research, completely applied degree. There's no teaching element to it. I know in the US it's a little bit different. At Oxford, of course, there's seminars you can attend, but there is no teaching. It's just a degree where you're fully doing your own research. Because the MPP isn't a research master's, it doesn't really give you the level of research training that you would need in order to do a DPhil, whether that's our DPhil or other DPhils. So an MPP is not typically enough to meet the requirements of a DPhil. You need to have a master's that has research methods or equivalent professional experience. Essentially, you need to have the experience necessary to conduct the research that you are proposing in your DPhil research proposal. So you can, but the MPP on its own is not enough. But we have had students apply after the MPP to the DPhil, and there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to, as long as you have other research training.
Perfect. Thanks, Beatriz. That was a good answer. Very thorough. That seems to be about it. I know Matthias has a specific question regarding visas, as he had done a master's and a PhD in the UK. And he had applied for another master's program, but received an email from the UK visas and needing more information as to why pursuing another master's, and was wondering if Oxford has sort of seen that issue as well.
I'm not sure. It's not something I've come across on, even though we do a lot of work helping our students get their student visas. So not something I'm familiar with, not something I expect should come up. But if it does, we definitely would be able to help you look into it. And it's helpful to know that the university, it doesn't just have, it's not just the Blavatnik School of Government. If you come and study with us, that will be there for you. The university has loads of centralized systems and resources available, including a student immigration team that can help you with any visa questions that you have during your visa application and so on. So I don't know the answer to that, but there's definitely resources and ways that we can find out if it came up.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Beatriz, and thank you so much, Belen. I'm wondering if you guys had anything extra to add. We'll put this recording on YouTube.
Yeah, I would just add, it's so lovely to hear Belen talking about it.
I
Of
know.
course, I know,
Yes.
I know on paper the MPP, and I obviously try and tell people how amazing it is, but it's so much more convincing and so encouraging to hear our students and alumni rave about it. And it's great to know that, what we're saying is true, and that the things I say, tend to be what students say, Belen would agree with. So thank you for joining us, Belen. It's always lovely to hear about our alumni.
Yeah, thank you. I think my only last remark probably is to say that it's like feel passion about changing the world, contributing to that and feeling part of a larger process. I think even if you apply this year and you don't get accepted or you don't get the funding, don't lose the hopes. Do it another year. No, the people in here is not a person that just applied once and got everything right. We're people that failed the English test, we're people that needed extra help in everything, and we're people that struggle sometimes talking in English. All these things is the people that is in here. So if you feel like you are not too ready to prepare, maybe you are right, but maybe it's not this time. Try again if it doesn't work this time. So just keep trying.
I know that Carolina has raised her hand, so Carolina, we'll ask you to mute. Let's see if it works.
Yes, you can hear me
Yeah, we can hear you
as
fine.
well. Okay, thank you. Well, I'm working in mining here in Chile, and I'm a twin mom also. So always we think that we are not eligible when we have a family behind us. So my question is, it is possible to be eligible to the programs also if I am a twin mom? And for me, it's a great experience because my first career was translator and interpreter, and then I fall in love with mining when I worked like assistants. So in that occasion, I took the decision to study industrial civil engineer. So for me, it was a great experience to be acceptable in this kind of program.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we definitely welcome students that have families, students that have caring responsibilities. In the past, a lot of our students have come with their families. The university does have a lot of resources available, where that's childcare or helping you find schools and all of that kind of thing. However, one recent development, I believe, was new last year, was a new UK government regulation that now students coming to study on a student visa for a taught degree, so for example, our MPP, wouldn't be able to get visas for their dependents off the back of their student visa. There are some exceptions to that. So if you come with government funding, whether that's from your government or from the UK government, then you are able to get a dependent visa. So one great way to enable you to bring your family is through, for example, getting a Chevening scholarship, because that's eligible. We were really upset with this new regulation because we didn't think it was fair, and it puts especially women in a really difficult position,
Yes.
potentially having to leave children behind. The school did a lot of lobbying and trying to reverse this, and unfortunately, and not just us at the school, the university, and a number of other UK universities, unfortunately, other than the exceptions around government funding, that is still the case. However, there's some people have explored other options. There's potentially options of coming on a visitor visa for your family. So that means they can come for up to 9 months, which isn't the full duration of the program, but is a big chunk of the year. I can't really advise on the visas because I can't tell you what way to do it. But there are ways around it. But unfortunately, often, if you don't have government funding, it is a difficult decision that our applicants have to make. But as I say, the university has a student immigration team that can help and advise you on potential routes and different things that you can do. And there's loads of resources if you do manage to bring your family with you. But we always have, people coming with their families, but also people leaving their families behind. So you definitely wouldn't be the only one in your situation either way, that, ends up happening.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Carolina. Wonderful, perfect. I know we're just a few minutes over, but on our website is the email that you guys can reach the admissions team at if you have any questions. And we will make this recording available on YouTube should you need to go back to anything. And there's wonderful resources on the Blavatnik School site as well as Oxford's site. And thank you again to Beatriz and Belen for your time and for sharing this information. We're looking forward to seeing who the next Luksic scholars will be for this upcoming year. So we can leave it there and thank you guys again. Take care, Belen. Ciao, Beatriz. Bye.
Yeah, thank you
Bye.
everyone for
Bye.
joining, and thanks,
Thank
Gabrielle,
you.
for having us.
Of course. Take care, everyone.